So we finally made it to the end of this little retrospective, and as we've seen, Golden Axe as a series to this day sadly has pretty much peaked with its first title. I've heard the arcade version of 2 is actually really good, but it's a game that you'd pretty much have to emulate as it's never seen a re-release, at least as far as I know anyway. So for most people, the ones that matter are the home releases, and if you watched the last episode, I wasn't a big fan of 2 on the Genesis. So I was curious to see what 3 would turn out to be. General consensus with the gaming community is that 3 is the worst entry in the Mega Drive trilogy. The fact that it never originally left Japan back when the system was still a thing should be a pretty telling and damning piece of evidence to back up its infamousy. But of course, I'm looking at it today and finding out if I agree with it or not. And you know what? My answer may surprise you, but let's get into it. So much like the 2 previous games, Golden Axe is a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up where you and potentially a friend go on a quest to fend off Damud Hellstrike, the Prince of Darkness and his army after he stole the legendary Golden Axe, and cursed all the heroes who could stop him. Thankfully, one of the heroes is somehow cured of the curse, and with the guidance of an older Gilius, begins his or her journey to free the other heroes and take down the Dark Prince. As you do so, you'll swipe your weapon, body slam, mount kill, and magic conjure everything that gets in your way. Again, if you played a Golden Axe game, then you're gonna have a decent idea on what to do. Just thankfully it doesn't feel as copy and paste as 2 was. So first thing you're gonna notice right off the bat when you first start playing is that there's now a choice between 4 playable characters instead of 3. And yes, Thunderhead has been relegated to a glorified host at the beginning and is admittedly kind of a stupid move to do that, since you know he's kind of your, well, fucking de facto mascot. You dumbasses, but I will compliment the characters this time around. Before, every character pretty much played the same with no major differences outside of their magic casting abilities. That's not the case anymore. Now, everyone feels completely different when it comes to movesets, all the while still feeling pretty balanced all things considered with their strengths and weaknesses. Well, except for one aspect, but we'll get to that. So with this game taking place long after the events of the first 2 titles, you're playing as completely new characters, though let's be real here. These 2 are straight up Axe and Tyrese. And if you didn't have access to a manual or something to let you know, then you'd be none the wiser that these 2 are technically different characters. So as far as I'm concerned, they are Axe and Tyrese. Yes, I am going to annoy the hell out of your OCD tendencies. Now, not Axe got quite the weight gain here, like Jesus Christ, man. Those are muscles that would make Arnold blush. I mean, people like to bust Chris Redfield's balls for his appearance in 5, but I mean, holy shit. So yeah, out of all the main playable characters, Axe is probably the most balanced, so as you can guess, he might not be shining in any aspects of combat, but he certainly doesn't suffer or underperform anywhere either. A really good start for newcomers, I feel, and he easily has one of the most satisfying dash attacks ever. Running forward with sword in front, oh fuck yeah. And oh man, did they make everything sound like it has weight to it again. Say what you want about this game, but no one's ever gonna convince me that landing attacks don't feel good in this game, like, oh hell yeah. Tyrese, or Sarah Burns, acts as your weak but speedy and elusive archetype character. Her attacks are quick, she can double jump as well as jump off certain walls to give her more of a tactical advantage. And while she might not be the fastest, she's still pretty quick, and is easily my favorite to play as in 3. But as I mentioned, there are also legitimately 2 new characters this time around. First off is Proud Krager, a being that has giant heritage and, as you can guess, acts as the slow but strong character where patience will be the key factor in playing as him well. He might not be my favorite by any means, but when you do manage to land his attacks, especially his air slam, it's probably one of the most satisfying attacks in the game. And lastly, we play as Kronos, Evil Late, a panther human hybrid who by technicality is probably the best character to play as, all due to his one attack that cannot be blocked. So yeah, I mean, kind of unbalanced, broken in that sense, and I'll get into that more later. But outside of that, I never felt like he was overpowered, and he's an up-close and personal fighter as you only have his claws to attack, but much like Sarah, he's quick in his attacks. So yeah, for what it's worth, it's a pretty decent player choice that each offers 4 styles where at least one will most likely appeal to someone. Plus again, good on the team for the most part for not making the characters feel unbalanced. In titles like this can be a huge problem where in some games similar to this style, where there's only one character worth playing as, and because that player gets to play as that OP character, they're gonna be killing everything before the others can get a hit in. But there is one aspect about Golden Axe's 3 combat that took a hit, and this time it was the magic abilities. Once again, you can use magic pots to activate a screen nuke to help turn the tide in battle, or act as a potential get the fuck off me move. In 2, it was upgraded where you could choose how potent you wanted your spell to be by holding the magic button down. In fact, it was probably the only improvement 2 made to the formula. Well, in 3, we reverted back to one style where you don't get a choice on how much magic you want to use. Activate and your pots are gone, one and all, regardless whether you wanted to or not. So that right there is a bit of a letdown, and it's really kind of like, well, really, why the hell would you go back to that kind of moment? It was a really stupid regression if you ask me. But sadly, it takes a step back even further since each character in the last 2 games had their own range of the magic meter. Here, everyone has the same one. On one hand, I guess I kinda get it. These characters finally get legit physical differences this time, as well as more balance since Gilead's could always spam his ultimate more often than Tyrese. So, in a way, it makes the meters kinda pointless, as well as more balance since Gilead's could always spam his ultimate more often than, say, Tyrese ever could. But I don't know, I feel that different ranges and requirements added a bit more uniqueness, so I am kinda torn on this one. So, I'll leave that aspect about the game for you to decide. But that's mainly the stuff we already know about Golden Axe. What did 3 do to differentiate itself from its predecessors? Obviously, besides new characters and moves. Well, actually a decent amount. After you play and beat the first level, you'll be presented with a fork in the road which will lead to branching paths, painting this as a much bigger game in terms of levels, and yeah, actually it kind of is. It's a very much welcome addition that I adore since it opens up the replayability quite a bit since there will be a few new alternate paths. And the levels are just a bit more interesting to go through this time. Level hazards, breakable objects that may reward or punish you, and there's an awesome new gimmick where you can save captured civilians and for every 5 you save, you earn a free life. It's great stuff. In terms of level theming and graphics, it's not as visually appealing in some regards, but I still think it looks a hell of a lot better than 2, and the soundtrack and sound effects are a hell of a lot better here too. In terms of enemy designs, they definitely got a little bit more creative this time. You still have your standard soldier-like moves, and this time they do feel a little bit easier to take out. Although, they did get over their little suicide problem and feel confident enough to not walk off ledges anymore. But it also gets pretty interesting where you'll fight other mythical creatures like these giants, these beasts, and this griffin-like boss who's a pain in the ass to deal with. Hell, even some of the armored soldiers actually use a shield to block your attacks. Actually, yeah, now that you think about it, you can finally block in this game. Something that is actually really surprising that it took 3 games to finally implement, and it's a great addition that adds to the combat. Is what I really, and I mean really want to say since on paper it's such a good idea, but in execution, it straight up executes any goodwill this game may have had since it's completely broken and not in the player's favor. To perform a block, you've basically got to push backwards and the attack button at the same time. It's not hard to do, but it's awkward as hell to pull off. And there's a severe problem where I'll block at points when I'm actually wanting to attack, which screws me up and disorients me, leading to enemies getting easy hits on me. If this was the only issue, then I could probably ignore it and go on without it. But as you can tell, certain enemies can block as well, and oh my fucking god, it's a crapshoot whether they'll let you land a hit or not. I've been playing this game for like a good day and a half, and I still can't find a trick to get past these iron defenses. And of course, it's mostly bosses, and especially of course, the fucking skeletons who love to spam blocking. Of course it's the fucking skeletons. I swear, it's like the developers went out of their way to make sure that this fucking tradition held true. See, I'm not against the idea of blocking in these types of games. If anything, it only makes sense to include such techniques. But any good game should know that there has to be a counter to blocking, or else the player can be completely screwed. Grappling, high or low hit, not have enemies spam it. Something. But sadly, Golden Axe, as far as I know, didn't get the memo on this, and unfortunately it kills the experience, and that's a damn shame, because this could have considered be a great entry in this little somehow beloved series. Now, if there's something I'm missing here, then I'll gladly retract my criticism. But until then, I gotta recommend caution to players who are looking to try it out. And I hate that I have to say that, because you can see the effort here. You can see that the team wanted to be ambitious, and I respect Golden Axe 3 a hell of a lot more than I ever will too. And to be fair, I enjoy 3 a lot more too. At least here I'm getting something different for Christ's sakes. And when the blocking issues aren't there, I do find it to be a fun and challenging experience. So yeah, I'm actually one of the few out there that will actually recommend it over the safeness of 2. But it's too bad that one glaring flaw brings it down to feeling like it's 2's equal, which is just an inferior version of the original. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a sad way to go out, but hey, if you are interested, then I'd say check it out for shits and giggles. I'm sure you and a friend could probably enjoy it in a so bad it's good kind of way, all the while still appreciating it when it does become fun. You're not gonna get that feeling all the time, but when you do get it, you know what? I'll still recommend it over 2 any day.